Hello, and welcome to the World According to Christy podcast. I am Christy Demetrakis, your host, the author of Faith to Conquer Fear, Inspiration to Achieve Your Dreams, an Amazon best-selling book, Faith to Conquer Fear, The Journey. I am so glad you are here with me. If you have listened to any of my podcasts, especially my podcast trailer, which is episode 0, you have heard me say that over the course of every week that you and I are together, you're going to hear something different. One week you may hear me talking or pontificating about whatever is on my mind at the time. Other weeks you will hear me share recordings from some of what I call my old friends, people from my vintage Faith to Conquer Fear and Sell Your Message radio shows. And then other weeks you will hear from some of my new friends. And this is one of those weeks. And I am so glad to have Michele Jones on today's episode of the World According to Christy podcast. Now, before I bring her on, let me tell you just a little bit about Michele. And as you probably have learned from me by now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time reading bios because I want to give my guests an opportunity to really share what it is they want you to know. But let me read you a little bit because she does a lot, okay? So Michele Ruth Jones' primary passion is to inspire and teach women how to break free of the isms of life. I love that. The negative, painful, self-sabotaging voices so that they can live a life of purpose, fulfill their God-given potential, and leave an eternal legacy for the next generation. As a writer, blogger, podcaster, and speaker, her lessons help women discover and maximize their hidden God-given treasure to successfully fulfill their unique place in the body of Christ. I love that. So well written. She is the CSO. You want to guess what a CSO is? Chief Servant Officer, love it, of Mining for Gems, a certified strategy coach, a #1 best-selling author, a signed Golden Eagle Award-winning inspirational film executive producer, New York City born, a world traveler, a philanthropist, I'm getting tired reading all this, and an in-demand speaker. Her proven GEM system helps countless women organize, clarify, and accelerate the execution of their vision. I am so excited, and if you aren't excited yet, you will be. Michele, welcome to the World According to Christy podcast.
Wow, Christy, thank you. It's an honor to be with you today. It's an honor to be with your audience, and I'm just excited to immerse myself in your world today, okay?
You know, because it is my
jumping
world.
right on in.
It's my world today. The World According to Christy. I love
jumping in.
Yes, ma'am. And I was saying we look like we planned our outfits today. I love that royal blue on you.
Great minds think alike.
Yes.
That same flow. So.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to jump right in because I want to hear what you have to say today. But I only gave a little bit of your bio, so I want you to tell us your background. Give us a little bit of your background.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, for your amazing audience out there, and if it's anyone who is listening to Christy right now and you're attracted to Christy's world, I know that you are a mover and a shaker because that's the kind of people she attracts. And so I'm just honored to be here and share just a little bit about my life and my journey. And I pretty much say life is like a roller coaster. You better get in. When you get in, you put that seatbelt on because of the ride. It's the ride of a lifetime. And I'm a lover of Jesus Christ. He's the lover of my soul, the lifter of my head. And when you're on a journey in a roller coaster with him, it's never boring. It is never boring. So,
never boring.
Never boring.
Never.
But
Michele, you have done a lot though. I mean, I read a number of things: writer, blogger, podcaster, speaker. But you didn't start that way, did you? Where did you start? Where'd your career start?
Wow. Yeah. I started really as I, look back on my journey, and that's part of the things that I teach women too, is that your life is a story to be read and to be read by all, okay? And so my story started as a little girl in New York City, in the real city, not upstate New York, okay? All right, in the real city with the pavement, okay? The 5 borough, okay? Let me be very crystal clear. The real city, the Big Apple where you chomp out of it, okay? So that's right. So from New York City, and Just wonderful family and parents. My dad is in the military, eventually rose to the ranks of general. My mom was, she kept the home front. But growing up, I was the oldest of 3 children. And as I look back, again, something that I do teach women is your life, all those little pieces, they make an incredible mosaic in a puzzle. We don't understand it when the pieces are being built. We're like, what's going on? What's going on in my life? But when you look back, you see how they're all integrated. And so here I was in New York City, and we had wonderful, tight-knit family in Brooklyn, New York, and my cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody was there. But then my dad got a promotion, and that promotion moved us to another borough in the city. And that meant from leaving all the people who looked like me to moving to another borough for an opportunity for promotion for my dad to, I didn't know that I was different. Does that make sense? So how am I different? I'm the same girl who was in Brooklyn, but now I'm different. And so I spent the first 2 years or so fighting, just fighting on the way home from school.
Physically fighting?
Physically fighting.
Wow, Michele, didn't see that coming.
Physically fighting just for protection, or physically having to have a voice to say, hey, that's mean, don't talk to me like that. But now 50 years later, those kids and I were all friends. And we're grown up, we're adults on Facebook.
You
hey,
see them into submission.
But when you're grown up and say, hey, you're Irish or you're this or you're that, and we don't like you, whatever, it's like, hey. But you learn. And as I look back, what was that part of my training? God was exposing me to people from every culture, from every walk of life. So now here it is 40, 30, 40, 50 years later, where I have the world is my playground. And where I can relate to anybody of any background because he reared me in that environment. Out from, okay, everybody looks like a rose, but now I'm going to put you in a multifaceted garden and watch you bloom there. So, but from there, it took me into really learning to speak up, use a voice that I had, and again, to find out years later that God made me a communicator. Okay. But that started in grade school and started in being the champion for the underdog. And then I would say, hey, don't do that to him or her. Don't do that. That's not right. That's not nice. Okay. At 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And so God was building those things within me too. The qualities of a leader, to speak up, to care for other people, to speak for injustice, to speak for what is right in the face of what is wrong. Does that make sense, Christy?
It does. It makes perfect sense. What I love about what you're saying is you were able to bloom where you were. So despite the initial struggle, right? And clearly, if you were fighting, you were having some struggle.
Oh my gosh, you're talking 10, 11 years old. Like, hey, I'm just trying to go to school. Do I have to fight for a backpack? Are you kidding me?
So what were you experiencing? What were the fights about? I know I'm asking you to go way back in the recesses of your mind, but we're in a very tumultuous time in our country. So what were the fights? What were the issues you were having?
The issues back then, we're talking because I'm a child of the 60s, the early 60s. So if you think of the 60s, people can think of tensions now. You don't know tensions until you go back to the 60s, okay? Where you still had issues of signs of white or black, okay? And so and my dad was given a major promotion, breaking the ground in the ranks of the military officers, and great opportunity. And so it moves us from the city to the suburbs of the city. And in the suburbs of the city, where there's the grass and the greenery and the opportunity and so forth, where people say, wait a minute, we didn't know people like you could be here. It's like
wow, well said. We didn't know you could be here.
You could be here. And so just having that conversation, but God was so good in his grace that the teachers, as I look back, and I still have those pictures from 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, there were my teachers who said, wow, Michele, there's more in you. Wow, Michele, you're this. Wow, Michele, you're that. And my mom, when she cleaned out our house years later too, on my report cards, straight A, straight A. Michelle is this, she does her homework, she does this, and then she speaks up for the other kids. So if someone's teasing somebody else, somehow I felt compelled to take their side. So wait a minute, you don't have a right to talk to him or her like that because they're Chinese or Filipino, okay? Or different. You don't have a right. And so God was putting that within me, a sense of people having worth, a sense of people having dignity, a sense that everybody matters. Everybody matters, and not one person is greater or lesser than the other, that we all are the same in the Lord's eyes.
I love that. I love that. And this, again, that goes back to, you know, a lot of people, and we're gonna shift gears in just a second to talk about where you are now, your nonprofit, you know, your corporate background. But I think so many times we forget all of those experiences that we've had, and we don't always leverage those as opportunities to, number one, understand what our purpose is. Because I fully believe that everybody knows their purpose. We just don't always acknowledge it because it may not seem comfortable, or it may not be that thing that we really want to do. But I love, even in the examples that you've been sharing, the things that you did even as a small child, even though you were taken from a very comfortable and safe environment, safe in quotation marks, to a very different environment. You managed to operate in that environment. You fought through those things, and you were able to really start to cultivate who you were, even as a young child up until now. So how did those experiences impact what you currently do? So talk to us about what the scope of the work. I didn't read about your nonprofit or any of your businesses, so let's shift gears and talk about that a bit.
Sure. So how did that all play in? Christy, is looking back, and that's one of the teachings that and the trainings that I do with women today, and I work mainly with professional women, you know, corporate women, powerhouses. Oh my gosh, but is really teaching them 4 reasons you're frustrated today and how to fix it. Okay. 4 reasons you're frustrated, and I can go take you right to the root of it. I say not the root, the root of it. Okay, to the root. We're going right to the seed of the thing. Okay, to pull it out to the root, to end that frustration today, my dear sister. So, but the biggest one is knowing your purpose. Okay, so that if when a woman or man or woman, but again in particular, my passion and callings to speak to women. So that's the road we're going to take today, even though I have men who ask for my counsel and services too. But share with women is we want to sit down and help you understand your purpose, that God has you here for a purpose, and everything that you have gone through in life is part of the mosaic. So for me, like we were talking about, learning to physically fight, okay, to stand my ground and sense of identity and worth, in a situation which was unfamiliar to me, it's because God was deepening my roots that, Michelle, that's going to be part of your lifestyle. So by the time I'm in my 20s and called into the corporate world, and my first major job after working on Fifth Avenue in New York City was relocating to California. Okay, so that's a big, from one coast to the other coast.
That's a huge jump.
Big change. Being the only, there were 2 of us, 2 African-American females in a sales force of 1,200. Okay.
I've been there.
Yep. And so the Lord says, hey, but you're going to look to him. And again, how do you break that ceiling when the guys are saying, hey, you're closing more deals because of the way you look, huh? Or because of your curves, you're closing more deals. Nope, it's because I'm putting together better deals and having good conversations with my clients. Okay. Having authentic.
Heaven forbid we actually do the work.
Exactly. We're actually doing the work. We're not just hobnobbing and playing golf, boys. Okay. So, but again, he gave me that foundation as that little girl in New York City, so that when I'm in the corporate world, and the fighting is not physical now, but now it's mental. It's a mental battle, that I could move forward and still do the things that God had designed me to do and serve my clients. That's why I'm a CSO today, Chief Servant Officer. Even in corporate sales, my charge was to serve my clients, not to sell them a package. Yeah, I did. That was the aftermath and getting compensated for it, which was very nice and very handsome. But the plus was, my thing was, how can I make his or her job easier? How can I help him or her get a promotion? Because if I can do that, my solution is going to do it. We're going to do more business.
That's right.
So
That's right.
the approach that I took with my clients. And of course, I had that mental pushback from the guys. It just is what it is. And so we just move on. But that went on for years. But the promotions came and the open doors came and the opportunity to even train the people who earlier on would tease me. Now I'm training them. Okay. And now they're the one driving me in the car around to appointments. Okay.
How fitting.
So
How fitting.
I just want to tell somebody today, even in the middle of what seems to be oppression in the battle in the workplace, you continue to work with excellence. You continue to work with integrity. You continue to work with authenticity and watch and see what God will do. Promotion comes from him, not from any man or woman. Promotion comes from the Lord because he sees everything. He sees everything.
Well said. Well said. So you talked about the frustration. What have you seen are based on all of your clients, these powerhouses, what are you seeing as the biggest frustrations that women deal with?
Oh, sure. Woo, woo, woo. So
I know, loaded question.
Oh man, you really like packing me down, Christy. Pack it in, pack it in. This is Christy's world. Get ready, get ready.
Get ready.
So fast forward, Christy. So in the corporate world, and this is in my book, and people can get it, Tired of Being Stuck, and God has had my testimony on Joyce Myers and all these major programs around the globe. So it just is what it is. My life is an open book. But after accomplishing all those wonderful things in my mid-30s, it was just like, oh, wow, God, okay, well, the cherry on the cake would be getting married because you've just blessed me with everything else. I'm just a happy little camper here. And I do get married, and my friends, my family, my pastors, everybody signed off on it. They were happy, my parents, all my prayer partners, everything. But lo and behold, not less than 10 years later, it turns into an emotional nightmare. Just an absolute nightmare. And where God had to actually just rebuild me from the inside out. Okay. Because now I was emotionally fighting for my life, not physically, but now emotionally and spiritually fighting for my own sanity, fighting over waves of depression, fighting over anger and disappointment with God. I'm just keeping it real here. Okay. And in the midst of all of that, the Lord said to me, he said, daughter, bring your heart back to me and I'll heal you. Bring it back to me and I'll heal you. And I did. And I said, God, you got to help me because I don't understand how this happened. I don't understand how the wolf in sheep's clothing got in after all these years. How this happened, Lord. And he rebuilt my heart from the inside out. But when all that was said and done, it was about an 18-month process, 18 months. The Lord said, this season of your life is over, the corporate world. Daughter, I've healed you that many could be saved. And he gave me a vision of the pain of women who are going through pain that I was going through and more, physical. Mine was emotional and mental, but going through and psychological, but the pain that God sees every night in his daughters around the globe, verbal, emotional, psychological, sexual, physical, all of that pain. And by the time the Lord showed me that vision, Christy, I was on my knees in a fetal position in my kitchen, bawling, saying, Lord, okay, I feel it. I see it. I see it. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want. That was now 20 years ago. And from that vision, God's given the opportunity to take the mission of Time to Fly. It's timetofly.org is the foundation. It's a 10-week, 40-hour program to help women heal from every level of abuse, women, and break bondages. God's taken that to be blessed on the local, state, and the federal level as an effective model for women to heal and move forward with the call of God on their life. And now he's even branched me out, because this year will be our 20th year at the foundation, the 501c3, but branched me out to now even consult other women who know that God's called them to have a business, an entity, an organization to impact others' lives, but they just don't know how. And so now the last 2 years or so, he's had me birth Mining for Gems to help women break through those frustrations that have them sitting on the fence knowing, I know there's more beyond this 6-figure job. I know there's more because I can't turn it off at night, but what is it, God, and how do I do it? That's where I come in. That's right.
Wow.
That's
I
right.
love it. I
So,
love it. So you're talking more, so you're touching women wherever they are, really.
different ends of the spectrum.
Different ends of the spectrum. So those people who are hurting from whatever it is, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, whatever kind of abuse there is, that's your 501c ish. Okay. And then more on the other side is really equipping women to help women do what you've really been doing.
Right. She's a leader. She's sitting there, she may be like, I work with women, they're incredible, whether she's an attorney or she's this or that. And I'm in the Washington metropolitan area with a lot of high-powered women, medical field, everything. A lot of secret jobs. If they told you what they did, they'd have to kill you. Okay. But like, don't ask her what she does.
Don't ask her
Just
questions.
see that look in her eyes. Don't ask. Okay. Don't ask anymore. Okay. But she goes to bed at night frustrated, knowing God is calling me for more. He's calling her for her purpose.
Yeah.
There's a difference between a job and a calling. A job you get paid for, a calling you can't turn it off. A calling has no ceiling.
That's so true. That's so true. That's so true.
A calling, you don't retire from a calling, you retire from a job. Okay? And so one of the biggest things I work with women is helping, let's define your purpose. Let's help you narrow that down, that unique gifting, the fashioning, the way God has designed you to make an impact on this earth that nobody else can do it the way he's given it to you. We help them flesh that out, and they walk away like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Or, oh, this resonates within me. This makes sense. Now I see. So we work through that. Then we work through how to manage time, because busy women are busy. Okay. And so we work with women. How do you manage the same 168 hours that we all get? I show them how to manage their time bank. Let me show you how to budget your time bank.
Love that.
How is it possible that you could have two women, you could talk to one, great, how was your year? Oh man, I wrote 4 books and I went to Japan and I did this, and then I changed my hair color, and then, oh, by the way, I learned to do kayaking. It's like, oh, okay, great. And then you ask the second girl, hey, how's your year? I don't know, I'm tired. What'd you do? I don't know, I was just busy. I don't know, I didn't do anything, but I'm busy. They both have the same amount of time, but it's how did you use it? And so showing both women how to use time so that we can be, another training that I do, how we can be fruitful versus busy. Big difference.
Yes, that's what I always
fruitful,
tell people. I'm
not
like,
busy.
There's busy and there's productive.
There you go.
Busy and there's productive. So yes, I love it. Fruitful.
Yeah. So I want to show you how to be fruitful and not just busy. And an acronym that one of my mentors, Dr. Miles Monroe, shared with us: buried under Satan's yoke. Do you want to be buried under Satan's yoke, or do you want to be fruitful with fruit that's not just enjoyable to you, but others can pick off of your fruit and say, I want to spend time with Christy. She tastes good. Or, there's something juicy about her. Or, I want some of what she has.
That's
we
good.
Want a fruitful life. We want a fruitful
Michele,
life.
what do you say to people who, because I run into people all the time and go, I have no idea what my purpose is. I mean, that's how many books are written about what is your purpose? The purpose-driven, like everything. And that's one of the questions that so many people have. And I already told you my perspective on it. But what do you say to people about how they can identify or come to grips with what their purpose is?
Sure. Great question. So we work with women and kind of like triage them, like take them down a path. Like, we're going to analyze you. Just analyze your life and see the story that God's written inside of you, because that's part of your purpose. So we help look back through her life. What has she walked through? What has God caused her to overcome? Okay, that's part of the purpose, equipping for the purpose. Also looking at the things, what makes her happy, what makes her sad, what makes her angry. Something that stirs you on the inside, that's part of your purpose. Okay? Because God has every one of us here to solve some type of a problem on this earth, because this earth is riddled with problems. Would you not agree?
I would agree with that. Yes, that is an understatement, but I would agree.
There is no shortage of it. The question is, which is your piece of the puzzle?
Plenty to go around. Yeah.
Right.
Plenty to go
Right.
around.
What's your flavor at Baskin Robbins? Pick your flavor of the day, okay? So, we work with them to say, okay, great. What bothers you? What angers you? What delights you? That's part of the area that you are being called to. You're being called to serve. And then also challenging people to, in your purpose, what is it? How do I put it? Where can you not sleep at night?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because when God is dealing with us about a purpose, there's that tap. You 2 a.m, you think you have to go to the restroom. Oh, no, no, no. It's God wanting to talk to you personally, one-on-one, about where he wants to take you and how he wants to use you. And then we look at your personality and then take you through some spiritual tests and some different tests and things. But all those things filter out. And by the time women go through their process, they said, oh my gosh, I see it. It makes sense. And now I feel like Cinderella, the shoe fits.
Yeah, yeah.
The
That's
shoe
good.
fits. The shoe fits.
I love it.
Whether
So
she's
would you
called-
say there?
Yeah.
Would you say there's a difference between passion and purpose?
Yes. Yes. People have a purpose. Okay, this is what you're called to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it needs to be fired up by the passion. The passion is like a fire on the inside, like, you know, like heating up the flame. I could have a stove to cook, but if the heat's not on the stove, we're not cooking anything. Okay.
Good point. That's a good analogy.
So I can have my purpose, but if I'm not fired up about it, it's not going to flow. It's not gonna flow. So I will ask someone, say, great, what's your purpose? Oh, I believe I'm called to do this. I'm called to do this. I'm called to do. Great. Okay, awesome. What's your commitment to doing that?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, a 2. All right. Okay, great. No. Let me ask you a question. I don't want to ask your head. I want to ask your heart, my dear sister. What does your heart say? Now, the same person who said 2 will now say, oh, it's a 9. It's a 10. It's a 10. It's a 10. Okay. So the gap in there is fear.
Yeah.
That's the gap in there. That discrepancy is fear. The 2 is her head. The 2 is her flesh. The 2 is the natural part of her. The 10 is the spirit and that passion, where that fire and that flame can only come from God.
Yeah.
That makes sense, Christy?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And again, that's why I believe, and I would say that even for myself, is I probably recognized my purpose when I turned 40 and I wrote my first book. That's when I knew. I mean, it's just like turned 40. First of all, I went to the doctor more times in 3 weeks than ever in my life. So my body parts started falling apart. But I also got the wisdom, right? I got the epiphanies. And that's when my purpose in writing that first book, my purpose became clear. I mean, you're right. And I always laugh, like, it was a really expensive lesson, guy. You could have just told me. That would have been. He's like, well, I was trying to tell you, but clearly you weren't getting you weren't grasping it. So I think I love the way you said that, because I think it is that fear.
Yep.
Because even when I figured out what it was, I was still doing the running, man.
And the struggle.
Because that fear of, oh my gosh, I don't really know what this looks like. Or what it's supposed to look like. And everything I imagine in my mind, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I think I love the way you said that. I'm going to use that, just FYI. But I love that difference between the passion and the purpose, is that fear is that gap between the head and the heart. Love it. Love it.
Heart. So I will ask ladies, they'll say, okay, great. I want to hear from your heart, not your head. Just shut everything out, close your eyes, and I want to hear from your heart. And every time it comes back 10.
Yeah.
She speaks off of the top of her head, it's less than 5. You want to hear
that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
And another area I really encourage women to is frustration. Christy, is just the nature of the world and life and things like that, is you got to find your community. You got to find like-minded women, like-minded men, but like-minded people who are going in that same direction as you. It's iron sharpening iron.
Mm-hmm.
If not, then your passion is going to be like a coal that's just going to go peter out.
Yeah.
But if you're with like-minded men and women, that coal, that passion, it just gets warmer and warmer and hotter and hotter and hotter. And it sustains you to keep going. But if
Yes.
you allow the world, life, the enemy, even your own junk to get you isolated, it will melt down and will just become a cold, hard lump of cold, hard lump of coal, just like it, just peter out. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense. Community is so, so important. And I think that's one of the lessons I'm personally still learning is the need for that community and that support network. And I think a lot of that is, trust. People don't always trust people, and people don't always do what they say because people are people. And I think that's one of the things we have to get in our minds is that people are people. So you just kind of get used to it. But there are a group of people who want to help and support. And when you are supportive, you will draw those people.
Exactly.
You will draw people. So that's a good one. That's a good one. Michele, as we get ready to wrap up, what's something else? Anything else you want to tell folks before we start to wrap up regarding this frustration?
Sure. Is that anyone, listening in and tuning in, watching in right now or listening right now, and if you're feeling frustrated, take it as a moment that God has you at a point of transition. Frustration, always take frustration as a point of transition. Why? Because what you've always walked in as familiar, God is now stretching you into the unfamiliar. And the frustration is there because we don't know what the next step is. We're control freaks. Okay, I said it.
Yep. I raised my hand.
It's framed, okay? Control freak, okay? I was in the 12-step program, okay, right? As we move into that next phase, that frustration is there because God is saying, daughter, I need you to trust me. Daughter, I have all things that will work out for you, and I know where I want to take your life. If you would just stop white knuckling and open your hand and trust me and watch me lead you and guide you into the calling, the purpose, the plan that I have for your life. And it is going to be exceedingly abundant above all you can ask, think, dream, or even imagine. Did this little girl see this in Brooklyn, New York 60 years ago? Heck no. Okay. But am I living my dream life today? Oh yeah. Everything I wrote down about traveling and doing this and doing that and seeing an impact in the world and walking where Jesus walked and Paul walked and Moses walked, he made it all come to pass. But through the hills and the valleys, holding on to his hand, okay, and saying, okay, God, here we go. There's another leap of trust and faith. Okay, I'm feeling frustrated because you're stretching.
Yes, it's so
because
true.
he wants to
Oh my gosh.
to the next level, to the next level. So I just want to encourage somebody with that today.
How do people contact you, Michele?
Sure. They can contact me at miningforgems.com and go into the contact section. Mining, M-I-N-G, is like digging it out, mining for gems. And that's what God does. It says, we have this treasure in an earthen vessel, that the excellency is of the power of God and not of us. So God's placed a tremendous treasure in Christy's world. Woo! Okay. And everybody who's listening under the sound of her voice, God's put a treasure in you, but it's up to us to allow the work of the Holy Spirit to dig it out, mine it out. So it's mining for FORGEMS, miningforgems.com, and send me a message in the contact and I'll get back to them. And for those who send a message, Christy, and say that they're referred through your podcast, I want to send them a gift too. Okay.
All right. Awesome.
A copy of Tired of Being Stuck.
Fantastic. Well, Michele, thank you. I knew this would be a wonderful episode, and you absolutely deliver. I'm so glad you took the time to come and spend some time with me and my audience.
Thank you.
Looking lovely again. For those of you who can't see her, she looks wonderful in royal blue. But anyway, I want to thank Michele again, and I want to thank you all for listening to the World According to Christy podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you are up to date on all the latest episodes as they come. I'm doing what I love. I'll talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.